Right now, we are in the middle of a massive AI gold rush. I mean, every single week, it feels like some new model comes out that just completely redefines what's possible. But what if this incredible AI summer we're all living through is about to come to a sudden freezing halt? In this explainer, we're going to explore the argument that this whole AI boom is actually built on a fundamental, maybe even unsolvable flaw, and why a new AI winter might be just around the corner. To really get where we might be headed, we have to go back to that feeling when this all started, and this quote just nails it. When they worked spookily well. That spooky feeling was absolutely real, wasn't it? The outputs were so fluent, so creative, it honestly felt like magic. It even led some really smart people to question if these machines were actually becoming sentient. And that feeling, that sense of magic, it went mainstream fast. It really felt like transformer-based AI had just shattered decades of slow progress. All of a sudden, you had chatbots that could write poetry, debug code, plan your vacation. Things they were never explicitly programmed to do, they just picked it up from reading the internet. The potential really did seem limitless. But here's the thing. This whole cycle of massive hype followed by a sudden, jarring crash, it isn't new in the world of AI. Not at all. To understand our future, we really have to look back and learn a lesson from the past, the first AI winter. Yeah, there's a name for this cycle. It's called an AI winter. It's what happens when the promises and the hype get so far ahead of reality that the funding just dries up, and all that exciting progress grinds to a halt. The first one happened decades ago, and believe me, it holds a critical lesson for us today. So, the difference between the AI of the past and the AI of today really comes down to this. The first wave, what we call symbolic AI, was all based on hard-coded rules. Think of it like trying to write a giant, perfect rulebook for all of reality. It worked for simple things, but it just couldn't scale to the messiness of human language. Generative AI, on the other hand, learns from these enormous piles of data, which, well, it seemed to finally crack that scaling problem wide open. And the engine that was powering this whole new era was one very specific piece of technology, the transformer. This was the breakthrough that made everybody believe, okay, this time, it's different. At its heart, the process is actually surprisingly simple. A transformer isn't really thinking. It's more like a super-powered prediction machine. It just looks at a string of text, and based on the trillions of examples it's already seen, it makes a statistical guess about the most likely next word, or even part of a word. Then it just adds that new piece to the end and does the whole thing over again. And again, at lightning speed. It solved the scaling issue. It produces these incredible, spooky results. It honestly seems foolproof. So, what on earth could possibly be the problem with this approach? Well, the argument goes like this. The problem isn't a bug we can just patch or fix. It's a fundamental flaw that's baked right into the very design of a transformer. It's an unavoidable and absolutely critical part of that process we just talked about. This right here, this gets to the absolute core of the entire argument. The AI's tendency to just make things up, what we've all started calling hallucination, it isn't some occasional error. It's the machine doing exactly what it was designed to do, generate text that looks plausible. I mean, think about it. The model's job is to always generate the next token. It doesn't know what's true or false. It has no concept of that. It only knows what looks right based on the patterns it learned. Its one and only job is to create a plausible-sounding sentence, not a factually accurate one. So, from the model's perspective, making stuff up isn't a failure. It's succeeding at its task. And this is where the real danger pops up. With the older, rule-based AI, you almost always knew when it failed. The program would crash, or it would spit out an error saying it couldn't find an answer. But with transformers, a completely fabricated, made-up answer looks just as confident and well-written as a correct one. There is no error message, there's no warning light. Okay, so how does this kind of abstract technical flaw translate into actual real-world economic trouble? What happens when this fundamental limitation collides with the billions and billions of dollars that corporations are investing? According to the whispers coming out of the tech world, this is the number. A rumored failure rate of corporate generative AI projects that is a staggering 95%. I mean, just look at this visual. It really puts that number into perspective. For every 20 projects that are launched with all this hype and all this investment, the rumor is that 19 of them are failing to deliver. And why? Because it turns out that a system that's confidently wrong even 5% of the time just isn't good enough for most critical business functions. And here's why this matters so much. In some areas, plausible errors aren't just an inconvenience, they are a complete disaster. You simply cannot have an AI hallucinating a medical diagnosis, fabricating legal precedent for a court case, or creating subtle but critical security flaws in code. In these high-stakes fields, that inherent unreliability is completely unacceptable. The whole situation is drawing some really strong comparisons to the dot-com bubble. Back then, companies were throwing billions of dollars at just being online, a lot of times without a real business model. The argument today is that companies are doing the exact same thing, investing in having an AI strategy based on some pretty unrealistic expectations of what this technology can reliably deliver. So, if this bubble does burst, what happens next? Does all this technology just disappear? Well, the argument says no. Instead, it'll likely contract. It'll find its proper place, away from all the overblown hype. The technology will almost certainly survive in a few key areas. We'll probably keep those helpful AI assistants in our text editors. Open source models will still be incredibly valuable for researchers. And yeah, of course, it'll continue to be used for low-stakes stuff like generating spammy articles or helping students get a head start on their homework. The world-changing revolution might fade, but these useful killer apps will stick around. This quote just powerfully connects all the dots. The tulips here, well, that's all the massively overvalued AI ventures that are built on hype instead of a solid foundation. It draws a direct line from today's AI boom to one of the most famous market bubbles in all of history. So that's the argument for a coming AI winter. It's not that the technology is useless, not at all. It's a warning that its core limitations just make the current level of hype totally unsustainable. They say history doesn't repeat itself, but it often rhymes. The critical question now is, are we witnessing a true technological revolution, or are we just watching the absolute peak of a spectacular bubble right before it bursts?